things to pick and choose and pick the bones out of from the 2-1 win against Aston Villa. But there was a little I found a little subliminal message in there, which certainly I believe signifies the end for Sebastian Haller. And it was the fitness or lack thereof of Michail Antonio. Because there would have been no surprise to anybody, I think, on the West Ham coaching staff that Antonio didn't last a game and didn't look particularly brilliant and was playing from within himself. Do I think Antonio said that he was fit? Yes, I do. But you've got to give that a little bit of balance when you're looking it up. Michail Antonio is in contract negotiations at the moment. He's on the last year of his contract, but he does also have a 2-year option on it. So even if he got to the end, we could exercise the option. Now, I believe the desire from the player and desire in the club is to give him a different contract, one that is a solid 3-year contract, which I think would take him up until he was 33 years of age, something like that. Now, what he has to do to prove himself worthy of that contract is show that he's fit. It ain't about talent. It ain't about form. He's got enough of a cross section of time, of data at the club to suggest that when he plays really, really well. He scores goals and he's effective and a very, very good Premier League player. Indeed, Michail Antonio at his best is arguably the first name on the team sheet. So it ain't about talent, it's just about fitness. So I think, bearing in mind he was in transfer negotiations in terms of his contract, I do believe that Michail Antonio would have wanted to get on that pitch against Aston Villa, would have wanted to get on there and prove and demonstrate that he's fit and ready to go and by default then able to earn a new 3-year contract. That's it from Michail Antonio's side, but the other story is from certainly David Moyes' side and the bigger picture of the coaching staff. That is that realistically, there is no place for Sebastian Haller, and I don't think I'm putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 5. I really don't. I think it's a very, very, very square and well calculated 4. He has a little. We call it a set of rules, but it's not a set of rules, is it? Which by you play well, you keep the shirt. It appears that's why Balbuena's playing and Diop isn't, and we know Moyes didn't fancy Balbuena. We've discussed it a number of times. That has to be the explanation with Fornell sometimes, who I just think is such a hard worker and we love him. And I do believe Fornell's going to be a cult hero at West Ham, by the way. He's going to be like James Collins. He really is, right? So let's get that out of the way. But sometimes he doesn't play that well. And sometimes you look at it and think he's not offering the attacking impetus that you would like a player to do sometimes. When you are playing 2 midfielders sitting, and I know Souček gets forwards to head the ball in, but he's not a craft player. He hasn't got guard. He doesn't open up a defence. I know Declan Rice will run and do a dribble and try and have a shot, but they're not creative midfielders. They're not Kevin De Bruyne, are they? When that's not happening, you need the creativity to come from elsewhere. And sometimes you look at Fornells and he's not providing it. And when Fornells ain't providing it, and then you've got Souček and Declan Rice behind, you just know that we could probably need something else to open up a defence. Where's that squeaking come from? I don't know where that's coming from. That's not a chair that time. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. So, but I think Fornells keeps the place because he's got David Moyes' trust, as Gio likes to say, but also because he's kept the shirt. That doesn't seem to apply to Sebastian Haller. He played well against Sheffield United. He scored a goal against Sheffield United. And I'm not overly here to complain about it because I think that David Moyes' blueprint, David Moyes' way of playing, actually allows him to select or deselect or ditch or transfer anybody he likes to, because he's got a body of evidence now, which is basically David Moyes can say, look, West Ham United as a club, let's be fair, you've been a bit crap. He's far too classy to say that, obviously, David Moyes, but he could say that you've been a bit crap. I'm going to implement some of the things that I've used over my career. I'm going to, through sheer hard work, I'm going to drag you up the league and I'm going to make you a stable Premier League club. Now, the evidence suggests he's actually doing that. So if along the way he turns around and says, I don't want this player or I don't want that player, bloody noise again. Then who are we to argue? You know, I think that's it. So I'm not. It's not. I'm annoyed that he's doing this, Sebastian Haller, but I do think we now have the evidence to suggest that's it. It really is all over, because for him to want to play Michail Antonio in the state that he was in above a fit Sebastian Haller just tells you everything you need to know. I was pleased. We were all pleased to see Moyes making the substitutions at half time. We really were. And under different circumstances, Benrahma sets up Haller and Haller scores. I don't think David Moyes is classless enough not to be pleased that Sebastian Haller scored, but I think the cross was for Haller. But you'll know what I mean if I say to you that maybe there was a part of him when Jarrod Bowen nicked Sebastian Haller's goal and scored that he was a little bit pleased. That probably vindicated his own thought process, his own confirmation bias. And he probably would be quite pleased with that. Don't get me wrong, he would have been pleased with the win, would have been pleased with Sebastian Haller's score. But yeah, I hopefully understand what I'm saying on that one. But it just doesn't appear to be part of the team, doesn't appear to be part of the plans at all. And I can't see any other reason why he wouldn't have started that game. And then you sort of realise that there's going to be a reluctance to play him from whatever. And this is now, by the way. We'll never know, because Andrei Yarmolenko, who appears almost like the forgotten man at West Ham at the moment, because Yarmolenko got the COVID. He hasn't had COVID for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. He's had the all clear since then. He's still not featured, so apparently he's not well with it. So I don't know how much of that is true. But you also don't know, had Yarmolenko been fit, how many times would Yarmolenko have featured as centre forward? Maybe not from the start, but if you'd have come in off the bench or something like that, I think it might have happened once or twice. I think you might find Yarmolenko up front. So with that in mind, would that have meant even less playtime for Sebastian Haller? I think it might have been. I am adamant, absolutely adamant, that we are after a striker in January. And it's because David Moyes is so desperate to implement his plan, implement his tactical strategy, that he needs to get another striker in, because Sebastian Haller just can't do it at all. I mentioned in yesterday's video, didn't I, that the coaching staff will very much be aware that we don't have any quick players. This is not how they want to play. David Moyes doesn't want to just soak up pressure all game long and have a pretty blunt attack. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with a lack of pace up front, you do have a blunt attack. Cast your minds back to the Wolves game and the Leicester game. Look at the way we countered then. It was fast, it was ferocious, very, very good. That's how he wants to play. He wants to play quick. He wants to get up that pitch in 4 or 5 moves. That's just what he wants to do. You can't do that with Sebastian Haller on there unless either side of Sebastian Haller are two very, very quick players. And we just don't have them. The quickest attacker we have is Felipe Anderson. He's no longer at the club. Bowen ain't slow, by the way. He's not slow. Benrahma ain't slow. Lanzini ain't slow, but it's not the type of raw pace that I'm talking about. And that's what he needs. He needs to introduce that to attack. And what he wants to do is, when we win the ball, what he wants to do is he wants to be able to spring very, very quickly on the opposition defence. When we don't have the ball, when the opposition have the ball, basically, I think he wants someone quick, so their defence just don't push up to the halfway line. They push a little bit further back and just hold back, because they're fearful of someone's pace in the team. I think it's a massive part of how he wants to play. I think he says a lot of the right things. I think we hear him talking about this 4-4-2 or playing 2 up. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. Maybe I'm going to take a little look and see what he did at Everton, which he never really played the 3 at the back, by the way, at Everton. But so that's not what I'm looking for. I want to see how many times he actually played with a genuine 2 up front. I can't shift from my mind, though, when I looked recently at what he did at Everton. It reminded me of his purchase of Andy Johnson. He was really quick. I mean, he was rapid. Remember him at Crystal Palace? Very, very. He might have even got an England cap or something like that. He was one of the quickest players, one of the quickest forwards you've seen in the Premier League. In terms of pace, he was up there. He was as quick as Craig Bellamy, as I remember. But he was diminutive. He was small. But it was all about the pace. And I don't think as a manager you completely change your belief system. I think you will tweak it now and then. But if what you do is you rate players with pace, and Morales certainly was very, very quick as well, even though I know he played from a slightly wider position, I think he's going to be looking to do that. I can't shift the suspicion that we'll sign Josh King. Just because I don't think it's Josh King or nobody, don't get me wrong, but I think that's the easiest one to do, just purely because he'll have 6 months left on his contract, and I would be absolutely gobsmacked if the deal isn't not done, but if the deal hasn't already been discussed. This is a player who was in his car with his agent on the motorway, on the M3 up to London on transfer deadline day, and he had to turn around because everything that happened, the Ben Rama deal, and all of those things anyway. And I think David Moyes probably certainly thought, well, you know what, I can get to January, I can get to the transfer window with things out there, and he would be right, by the way, because he has. Well, it's December now, but you know what I mean. Even if we were to lose our next 3-4 games, it has still sort of worked, hasn't it? He's still, bearing in mind at the start of the season, people looked at it and thought we're probably going to be down near the relegation zone. He's allowed himself the luxury of buying himself that time to get to January, so as he can address the striker situation. But I do think that the Josh King deal is ready to go now. If they do it, I think almost quite un-West Ham-like, it may all get done very early at the start of the season, because I'm not sure how much he's playing for Bournemouth at the moment. I know I watched him play the other day and he hadn't featured. If he hasn't featured and he hasn't played very much, they're going to need to get him fit as well. And we know David Moyes likes his players to get fit. So even if he came in at the start of January, I wouldn't expect him to play for the first 2-3 weeks, because it's just how Moyes does it anyway. But I do think we can tell an awful lot. As you know, I thought it anyway. I suspected it anyway. Moyes doesn't fancy Sebastian Haller. It really is as simple as that. I thought he came on the pitch. I thought he did well. But I'm not sure that that's going to be enough to convince David Moyes that he has a future at the club. Because let's be fair, playing well and scoring against Sheffield United didn't convince David Moyes to basically start Sebastian Haller ahead of an injured or recovering player. So I don't think coming on as a substitute, playing well and not scoring against Aston Villa is going to be enough for him to persevere with Sebastian Haller long term. And why should he? Why should he? Because if what he's got is he's got a view and a vision, a strategy for West Ham, which involves all the counter-attacking, and what he needs are certain players to make that work, then he's got to go and get our players. It's the fact that Sebastian Haller cost 45 million, West Ham's record signing, should not feature in his thought process at all. At all. Because realistically, it's not David Moyes' problem. Because actually, he's pretty much shown that he can get West Ham up there without Sebastian Haller. In many respects, it was Manuel Pellegrini's problem, and quite right too. If we were struggling and Manuel Pellegrini was, well, he was, and Sebastian Haller wasn't doing the business, then you have every right to turn around to Pellegrini and say, look, hold on, mate. You know, you've just broken our transfer record for you. You said this guy was going to come in and be the top goal scorer in the league, or was one of the best strikers in Europe. What's going on? Why can't you get a tune out of him? And that is aside from the argument, which we all think, some people think he's bloody useless, but a lot of us think Sebastian Haller is a good player and an excellent player. And I believe that he will go elsewhere. And I believe when he goes there, he will do really well and he'll continue to score goals. But he won't be proving me wrong, because I believe he's a good player. But there's a massive difference between being a good player and being the right fit. And at the moment, Sebastian Haller is not the right fit for West Ham. He's not the right fit for David Moyes. And I don't think he'll be here next season.